This is Tim,
This is Jonathan.
and welcome to another episode of The Average. Today, we're delving into the captivating world of cinema and exploring the enigmatic thriller, The Brotherhood of the Wolf. From the heart-pounding action to the intricate plot twists, we'll dissect every aspect of this mesmerizing film. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's deep dive into Brotherhood of the Wolf. So the story in this movie, it's directed by I'm going to butcher these names. I'm just telling you right now.
I can help with the names if you like.
Okay. It is a French movie, best watched with actual French and American subtitles. I can tell you that after my 2 watches. Directed by Christophe Gans, viewers are transported to 18th century France, where a series of brutal killings terrorize the countryside of Gévaudan.
Yep.
Close. These killings are based on an actual event that happened, historical event. But as panic grips the region, King Louis XV sends his trusted naturalist, Grégoire de Fronsac, portrayed by Samuel Le Bien, along with his loyal Iroquois companion, Mani, played by Marc Dacascos, to investigate the mysterious attacks. As they delve deeper into the heart of the darkness, they uncover a web of deceit, political intrigue, and supernatural forces. Caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse, they must navigate through a labyrinth of secrets and lies to uncover the truth behind the monstrous killings. Alongside Leban and Dacascos, the film features an ensemble cast including Monica Bellucci as the enigmatic Marianne de Morangas, Vincent Cassel as the fiery Jean-Francois de Morangas, and Emily Dequesne as the innocent and courageous Sylvia. If you don't recognize a lot of those names, they're big French cinema names. They're pretty well known in French cinema. Directed by Christophe Gans and written by Stéphane Cabal, Brotherhood of the Wolf combines elements of historical drama, mystery, and action, creating a visually stunning and emotionally gripping cinematic experience. Jonathan, you want to kick us off on this?
Yeah. So we're going to just jump right into it with the story, whole plot situation. So really love this film because there's so much different stuff going on, and it takes place as kind of a historical period piece with just, this other fiction written into, a historical setting in 1764 France, prior to the French Revolution happening. Everything right then at that time going on with King Louis XV is starting to build to a head. The dissension of the people, materials being, cleverly hidden in books as, text, stuff like underlying themes against the king and what's going on that are being distributed to, further, spread that dissent. It's really cool because of how they wrote like this story in with history. I like it when people do that, that sense of historical reference and some sense of reality to the story. Man, I'm sorry. I love this film a lot. I really do. I try to be objective about it, but I remember back when I first saw this I think it was in like 2002, even though it came out in 2001, man, seeing Marc Dacascos, just kind of was like, woo, what's up, buddy? Because, he's got some stuff going on, but with the story, when you've got this whole thing going on where there's this beast tearing up the countryside, just, attacking people over and over, everyone's scared and like, who's going to fix this? Who's going to take care of it? So of course, King Louis XV trying to be good as he can, sending out the, oh God, what was his name already? I've already gone crazy with it. The actor Le Bihan, who Grégoire, the character
Grégoire Fronsac,
Sir Fronsac, him and his Iroquois buddy Manny, played by Marc Dacascos. They come out and they're trying to help ascertain what kind of beast this is and how they can take it down and then preserve it for the king to show off to everybody. So there's a lot of weird stuff because it involves a little bit of the church. As well as all the different marquis and other political figures in the area of Gévaudan. and just like it's crazy. You don't, when you first watch it, you're really not really sure what's going on or what's happening. Then the story tends to develop further, but then you get like personal stories going on with Gregoire trying to get with Marianne, I believe her name was.
Yeah.
The daughter. Yeah, Marianne. So like he's trying to develop his little romance with her, and then you've got the weird brother Jean-Francois, played by Vincent Cassel. I'm not really sure which is, but um, man, just
His performance is great.
yeah, there is a lot going on
And
here
I'm sure we'll get
between
to
like
that.
trying to figure out what this animal is, and then like all the tension with people still getting attacked, and then people within the whole court system or the political system with. I'm not sure what kind of system I would call it, but
Yeah.
I'm not really summing it up well here.
I'm not studied up on my French history. I'm not even sure if it's a feudal system or what, but whatever it is.
I just can't think of the right term for it.
Yeah.
Monarchy, I think it is. Yeah, monarchy. But with all the figures in the area, and how upset they are with the king and like their views on how the system should be changed, there's a lot of actual historical action, like significance for what was going on at the time, despite the fiction of this beast attacking everybody and trying to find out whether it's a real beast or if it's something supernatural. Is it something sent from hell? Because they're all very religious Catholic people, as well. So there's a lot of that plays into it, especially with, the public of the area. They were just very highly like Christian emphasized time with the Catholic Church, or as far as Catholicism goes, not Christianity necessarily, but
Yeah.
And then just like the fact that you've got, an Iroquois Indian who's like the last of his tribe because of what happened during the French Indian War in the Americas prior to the establishment of the United States. Like hearing his whole story about how he was the last of his tribe and what happened, and you get more of that historical sense of things with all the blankets that were sold or given to the Native Americans and how they all got really sick and died because of it. It's cool how they take all this different stuff with history and then just blend it with this crazy story.
So the two, like you're talking right now about blending the history, there actually was a beast of Gévaudan, which was a real wolf-like creature that prowled the Auvergne, I don't know, south of Duran regions in France during the years 1764 to 1767. It killed about 100 people, often in bizarre circumstances. So the difference is this movie makes up what that creature was, but it's based on an actual series of killings, and all of the primary characters except Mani, Dacascos' character, actually existed and lived during the reign of King Louis XV. Like, I think that's awesome that they brought that in and wove this story together out of real history.
Okay, well, Christophe Gans, the director, and then Stéphane Cabel that wrote it, they did a great job, I think, with retelling history, all the historical parts of it.
Yeah.
But then, the creativity that came up with how they told the story about what this creature is, where it came from. I mean, with you got like the brother Jean-Francois who's obsessed, it turns out, as it seems, with his sister Marianne, and how twisted that is. Like, oh man,
that caught me off guard.
Like I said, there's so much different stuff going on there when it comes to like the political intrigues of the court, and that has always been like a big theme when it comes to power in France, it seems, throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good. It's just cool seeing like more of the microcosm part of it in that part of the history.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's so much to talk about. This is a pretty long story because it's almost a 2-hour movie.
It's 2.5.
Is it 2.5? Oh,
I thought it's 2.5 hours long. At least I watched it on AMC Plus. And
okay.
The cut
mine was like 158. That was like including the credits and stuff, though.
Yeah. So that'd be 2.5 hours.
2.5. Oh, shit. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Pretty long film. So there's a lot of telling in there,
Yep.
Then you've got the brothel, Monica Bellucci.
Yeah.
God, she was awesome in that as Sylvia. Getting that whole like secret, turning out that it's like she's a spy basically for the Pope, as it
Yeah.
turns out. And that was always kind of reminds me of like the Three Musketeers a little bit, because they had that same kind of situation going on there, where you got like the secret spies for the Pope. You never know who they are, where they are, and in this situation, it just happens to be this high class prostitute, as it were,
Ye-
somewhat, and like all the stuff that she does, and like man, she's a pretty solid chick, man. Like great character.
yeah, she is. She was interesting. Yeah, I the story of this film is it's interesting. It's compelling. It weaves a lot of unique ideas together. One of the major things you see about the film is how it combines a bunch of different genres. A little bit of horror here, a little bit of martial arts film here, a little bit of romance here, but it weaves it together fairly well. And for me, I gave the story a 4. I thought it's a really unique story. There are some things that I'm like, I did feel like some of the Native American stuff was a little shoehorned in at times. They did a nice job with it for the most part. I also really like the historical look at how people in France treated him, having never seen someone like him before. But I also felt like you could tell he was the only character who didn't actually exist at that time. So I felt like there were a couple moments like that where it felt kind of shoehorned into the story, not blatantly awful at all. It works with Frontzak's character, their blood brother relationship. But yeah, I give the story a 4. I thought it was a pretty great story.
Right. Well, I didn't dig enough to know that it was based more in history than I thought it was. But overall, I really liked the way the story was told, the different characters. Just a lot of so many details. But I give it like a 5. I really liked it. I thought it
Nice.
was fantastic.
Yeah. All right. So into the next category then.
Right. So character arcs in the movie.
Yeah.
So there's, like I said, there's so much going on. You look at each of the main characters between Gregoire Franzac, Manny, and then you've got the Marquis, Thomas, the young guy that's always running around with them, and then Jean-Francois, Marianne, Sylvia, and even Thomas has like you see like the old version of him at the start and the end of the movie, and then you see all the stuff that he experiences as he's telling the story as the young man experiencing it all. Gregoire, man, like he was just expecting to come out, do his naturalist thing, document some information, and help them catch a thing, and go back to doing whatever, and hopefully, make it to Africa. That's his big dream after having already been to the Americas, to go to Africa and check that out. So seeing how things get more tense, with him and Manny, and with people having never seen a Native American before, as it were, much less an Iroquois, whatever.
I think they actually
Whatever
refer.
tribe he's from.
Is he actually Mohawk? I think he's.
He
from
mentioned Mohawk, or Gregoire was talking about telling us some like story about a Mohawk tribe and
Okay.
some like how they do things or perceive things. I
Yeah.
don't remember exactly, but yeah, sorry, just got kind of sidetracked, man. But so from falling in love with Marianne, getting kind of caught up in a bit of the intrigues, trying to figure out what's going on with this creature and what it is, finally, getting some sense of lead, trying to track it down, and then trying to save Marianne and keep her safe from everything, then like with having to experience Manny dying, like seeing him finding his body and like him losing it,
Yeah.
he really, he goes like straight up like Native American on it. What was that?
motorcycle just blew by my window. So I'll mute myself on that and cut that out later. But
right, I'm
yeah, as you were saying, because I didn't hear any of it.
But yeah, so like him like thinking it was going to be a simple job, all the tension that occurs, falling in love with this young lady who kind of is weird because like he looks like he's almost like 40, maybe in his early 40s or late 30s, and she's like looks like she's 17, maybe 18.
Yeah, she looks
if that.
young. Yep.
And then the fight and like trying to discover all the secrets, and then being led this way and that, and then finally discovering the truth of things, losing Manny, going off, and then just really digging in hard and trying to solve this mystery and to stop everybody, stop whoever's behind the attacks after they realize that there's somebody leading it and leading this beast. And then finally, confronting Jean-Francois once he finds out that, he's the one. And then finally resolving that whole situation, bringing Sylvia and like the secret police kind of situation to arrest everyone that's involved in this plot against the king. That sense of redemption from finally getting revenge for Manny, kind of resolving everything, and then finally getting the girl, and then finally getting his dream to go to Africa. So you see a whole lot of waviness, ups and downs, but then ultimately he reaches his goal, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So with I'm sorry, go ahead.
Going. No, it's a great arc. He's an interesting character, great character.
Yeah, I was gonna say I give him a 5.
Yeah,
I give him a 5. I think it was a well-written character.
Well, I also think even the villain has an arc in this movie.
Yes,
and whether it is he is the villain at the beginning, which I think he is, but the way he's revealed to us is a journey itself. You gradually reveal his evil as opposed to like, hey, he's the bad guy in scene 1. I think that's a great arc. You mentioned why can't I think of her name? The spy.
Sylvia, Monica Bellucci.
Yeah, Sylvia has an interesting arc. At first, you just think she's a sex worker. And then you're gradually revealed more and more. Same for Marianne, the sister. There's a lot of interesting character work done in this movie. So I gave it a 4. Sorry. So I gave it a 4, just a little short of amazing. I gave it a great. I thought the characters were great and memorable.
Heck yeah. Well, I like that you brought up Jean-Francois and his sort of arc, because at the start, when you first meet the guy, he just seems like kind of just like it's like your regular stuck-up pompous aristocrat.
Yeah. He's like showboating and everything.
It's like, oh yeah, I got no arm. Like, whatever, he's kind of a pompous jackass.
Yep.
But then as the story goes, you see the damage, the twisted mind that he slowly reveals, which you can tell is pretty much a trauma from what he experienced, because he himself had been to Africa, as he had mentioned when talking with Gregoire during the beginning parts of the movie. So you slowly see him unravel and get deeper and deeper into how twisted he is, until you finally realize that he's the one behind the beast attack. Yep. And then, assaulting his own sister, towards the end of the movie, and exposing that he's actually got a fully functional arm, and it's all just crazy mangled, messed up, and get long nails. Looks crazy as hell. And like you see him really, like from that point on, really embrace his evil madman, and just goes full tilt with being, the master of the beast and just going after it and revolution against the king and shit,
Yeah, it's almost as if each kill that happens throughout the film builds his villainy. Like, it just starts with one, he doesn't seem that bad, and then every time somebody dies, something happens, his villainy grows. Almost like that beast is directly feeding into his evil, which, I don't know, with the supernatural elements of this, could be that closely related.
No, well, I mean, when Gregoire cleans Manny's body after he's dead, he finds Jean-Francois' bullet.
Yeah.
And he says early bit, it's like, I always sign my shots. And that's
Yep.
how he discovers that it's really him. And then getting that sense of redemption, confronting him, revenge. And then you see Jean-Francois, he thinks he's like this total superpower of awesomeness that he can tear down the whole system and no one can stop him, and gets put just straight stomped, throat slice, Oh, dude, God, love seeing that dude get his just desserts. So seeing him through his rise and then fall of his villainy, I think is a pretty sweet arc in itself.
Yeah. Yes. All right.
All right. In the end, on to the next one. Music, sound design.
Music.
So for this one, man, I didn't really get much out of it. I went on an average, like kind of a 3 for it, because I mean, there was good soundtrack to kind of set the tone for the tense situations. The music through like a lot of the entertaining scenes at whoever's estate, seemed very typical for what you would have at that kind of thing. Nothing really stood out. There were no like memorable songs or tracks, nothing that, people really know from any kind of mainstream thing.
Yeah.
But it was just enough to set the tone, that it blended in with everything, that it didn't distract me from the story. So.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the music was good. I thought it set the scene. The one that stood out to me was when they go to the brothel. It almost got like circusy sounding. And I was like, man,
a little bit.
That's almost like, I don't want to say it's a poor choice, but it definitely, I noticed it. I actually thought it fit, but it was like, you're not implying this as a sideshow, but the music had those similar elements to me. But overall, I thought they used period appropriate music for much of the film. And I thought it was really solid music. I didn't, like you said, it wasn't distracting. It aided the scenes and it worked, but it wasn't bad by any stretch of the means. I also, did I give it a 3 or did I give it a 4? I also gave it a 3. Yep. Before we jump into the next category, I want to tell you a little bit about Zencastr. When I was preparing for our 13 Nights of Halloween series, I was really searching for a way to streamline the process. I wanted a professional-looking setup to invite our guests to. I wanted quality audio and video recording, and I wanted the easiest way to release the episodes to as broad of an audience as possible. This is how I landed on Zencastr. It is now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Just log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. And speaking of audio quality, have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you are thinking of starting your own podcast or just want to streamline what you are already doing, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code AVERAGECUSTOMER, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. That's average customer, one word. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all of my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. So let's dive into the next category.
Right.
Okay, the editing and special effects. This is the one for me.
I figured it would be.
You might be thinking differently. So, well, let's get into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's like, you get some CGI throughout parts of the movie. They don't really overdo it with the CGI.
Honestly,
you see it.
It's some of the best CGI in a movie from this time period. Like, it's really good. It's really good.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
the CGI stuff you see of the beast and the detail and the sense of movement as it moves through the environment when Like especially in the scene where Gregoire comes back to back to Givaudan for Marianne and to finally hunt the beast their way with Manny. You see that beast tearing through that small house from coming down into the basement to attack the father
Yep.
of the house, and then like bursting up through the floor, running around, beams falling and trying to attack and lunging back forward. There was a lot of great movement and it looked really good.
It's one of the
And even in
best
some of
scenes
the
in the
close-up
film.
shots, you see
Yeah.
great detail
Yeah.
where it looks like believable for like an actual, lion or lion cub or something, tiger, whatever it is, under all the stuff that's like been attached to it.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet on that. And then the bone whip sword that Jean Francois had that he was fighting Gregoire with at the end of the film. Oh man, that was cool. Like the effects, how it like slung out, pulled
Yep.
back, the flexibility of whipping it around and everything, the detail of it and how it worked. Man, that was awesome. It was so badass.
Yeah, that looked really cool. The man, why can't I think of it? So the special effects for the creature were a combination of the computer generated, like you said, but also puppetry and animatronics from the Jim Henson Creature Shop.
Hey, okay.
Which, yeah, that's why it looks so freaking good. And
they'll
John
make it do it
Francois'
right.
whip sword was actually inspired by the video game Soul Calibur.
Hey,
That's
right.
Ivy's weapon in the video game, apparently. So that's where that idea came from. But it all looks really good. My issue, like this would have been a 5, but I docked it because the editing drove me insane in this film. It looks like a early 2000s ballad music video. So often we get so many like
With the
slow
candlelight
fade.
places and stuff.
Yeah, the slow fades, the cross dissolves into the next scene. Some of the like this 2 scenes that I really didn't care for, and one that it's better at the like when you find out why it exists, but I'm still going like the way it was done bothered me. But the not embalming, the taxidermy of the wolf, don't care for that scene, don't need that scene. I get what they're saying. It's enough to say it and move on. It's 2 minutes that I could have done without. But the same with Mani's autopsy. But I get Mani's autopsy when we get to that silver bullet, that reveal. So that movie, I battle, or that scene specifically, internally, I'm like, it's a touching moment. I get that it's sad for Francois.
Gregoire.
Yeah.
Gregoire Francois.
It's a touching moment for him, but the way it was edited with so many like cross dissolves of like the sponge and then his face and just fading into each other, it feels like the Forever music video that Jesse sings in Full House. And I'm just, that's all I could picture.
Fade, pan, fade, pan,
yes,
fade,
exactly.
pan, fade.
But the movie is filled with it. Like, I promise, if you go watch it again, you're gonna notice all of these fades, all of these cross.
Oh, I can think of a lot of it. I can already think a lot of it in my head.
Yeah,
now that you mention it, it doesn't really register when you're watching it. But if you think about it,
yeah. There's a scene where Mani is like, he's not watching it, but the way it's cut, we get his face in profile, and it is faded with somebody butchering a wolf right next to it. And again, it's done for like symbolism and to show that this kind of hurts him a little, because he didn't think the wolves, he knew the wolves weren't the creature and that this wasn't going to solve everything. But just the way it was faded, it got to a point where I was like, okay, it's too much use of the crossfade, too much use of the slow fade outs. It was too much of that. So this is one of the few times that I get onto editing, but this one, it stood out to me. It was very it was period specific. It was something that early 2000s I've seen before. It kind of was in style, kind of went out of style. I think there's a time and place for it. I mean, I docked the Iron Claw for using the same thing. I don't care for it, and this went overboard. So
Well, there's the other scene too that makes me think of where the girl, she tries to get her ewe out of the little mud pit, her little lamb, and then you hear the whistle, and then the
yeah,
creature shows up, and you see her sliding back down and thrashing around, and then you see that slow down and then still,
yes,
and then back
still
to it, thrashing around, slow down, still. It's like, dude, really? Did that? I don't know. That seemed like kind of unnecessary.
yes, I agree. Completely unnecessary, but that scene looked cool. I'm gonna
Yeah.
give it that. I was like, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, this is why Zack Snyder was popular in the early 2000s. Like that slow-mo thing was in. And this movie used quite a bit of it, but that wasn't what distracted me. There were quite a few times that I was like, oh, that's slow-mo. Oh, like the scene where birds fly out from behind Manny as he's standing there on the rocks. I'm like, that was a pretty cool shot. It was slow-mo. It was unnecessary slow-mo, but it looked really good. So I I battled back and forth. There were editing choices that I think are definitely indicative of trying to be too stylish in the early 2000s that we could have pulled back, shot it differently, and the same scene would have been far more powerful removing that. So ultimately, I think the creature scenes are where the editing is the most successful. It blends that CGI with the practical beautifully. It's some of those moments that are supposed to be soft and tender when it goes into those crossfades and slow dissolves. There were some that were really cool, like when she asks him to draw her in a very Titanic-esque scene.
Yeah.
And we get the closest close-up of a naked body I've ever seen in a movie, honestly. And but the camera travels across like her hips and her stomach, and they turn into the mountainside. And I'm like, it was a cool idea. It wasn't as effective as they were going for, but it was a really cool idea. So I battled on my score for this one. I ended up just going with a 3 because the editing really got to me, but the effects were so good that I just averaged it out. I averaged it to
Oh, really?
3. Yep.
But what about what about when they first come out to see one of the attacks and there's the dead body lying by the pond, and the guard captain, all the guys come out and they tell him, like, be careful, it's full of poison, and then you see the woman's dead body and you see her side, bitten
Yep.
out, and you see the entrails. That was pretty cool too, man.
That was good.
I thought that was pretty rad. And then with a lot of the darker lighting through a lot of the scenes, and like some of the interior scenes too, like you didn't really have to try too hard with the blood effects either, because it was so dark, it's just going to look like a dark splatter of whatever.
Right.
So you didn't really have to worry about that too much.
I thought they were very tasteful with the blood effects in this movie.
They were
very tasteful. There's nothing over the top in what's a pretty violent film. There's nothing crazy.
Yeah, and some of the scar effects you see after like those guards disguised as women at the early part of the film, the opening scene where Gregoire and Manny come up, and like the old man healer and his daughter are being like beaten by those guards disguised as women.
Yep.
Where was I just going? I just kind of totally like lost my track. All of a
You're
sudden.
talking about the scar effects.
Yeah, so you see those same guards later, and you see their faces, how they're beaten up, and they got cuts and all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the small details for that kind of stuff. And then when you see Jean-Francois' arm, all the scar and like what looks like mangled, burned flesh, kind of, sort of, like the effects they did with that and how they made his arm and hand look through all that was pretty awesome as well.
His fingernails were disgusting.
Dude, they were like friggin' like 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches long. They were gnarly looking, dude.
Awful. So good. Oh. It's great effects. Well, the other thing, I was going to put this into directing, but it's worth mentioning the costume design. Costumes and sets in this movie are top notch. Top notch. The costumes look amazing. The sets, there are a couple times that you know it's a set. Clearly it's a set. The final fight between the two main characters takes place on a set, but it's good. It looks good. It's a well-designed set. It's great stuff. And even some of the stuff like on top of the castle where you're pretty sure, or like looking out at the castle window where you're pretty sure it's green screen, just because it looks too good to have been real. If it's real, all credit to them even more. But like, there's a lot of, maybe you can persuade me to do a 4. I just those I almost went through my second watch and counted all the crossfades and dissolves, but there are some scenes where it's like 6 shots dissolving into each other constantly. So maybe I can be persuaded to give it a 4 because there's a lot of quality in this film.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay.
I'm down with that.
4.
For sure. All right. So then on next brings us to the script. Was it well thought out and unique? I definitely thought it was unique, even though it turned out to be more historically relevant than I originally thought. Man, the storytelling is cool. You know, I don't really know how to explain it.
My favorite line is from Manny.
I think I know which one.
It's the, what is it? All women are the same when the lights are out.
Oh, that one. No, okay, no, I was not thinking of the same one. Yeah, okay, yeah. They were asking if a savage like him could breed with their kind of women, and then he says that. Yeah, but no, for me it was when it's Gregoire, Manny, and then Thomas, the young Marquis, where they're on their version of the hunt, where they go track down the beast, and Manny gives Thomas some peyote. He's like, "What is this?" And Gregoire's like, "Oh, it's an Iroquois sacrament or something like that." And it turns out it's like peyote, dude. It sends him tripping balls, through the night, which is ridiculous but super funny. But he says before dude passes out, and he's like, "Tonight we will dance the dance of blood." And I thought that was really cool. Yeah.
Yep. There's ultimately I didn't give the script a perfect score. It's a 4 for me because I do think it meanders a bit. There are some scenes that I probably would have liked to see tightened up. Like I said, I didn't really care for the wolf embalming scene. Didn't need it. Or the taxidermy scene. Didn't really need it. And I think there are some of the smaller scenes that could have been trimmed out of the script a little bit, or some things that need to be mentioned and not shown. It ultimately isn't a huge flaw. It was really well written. I thought each character carried themselves, and this goes to the acting as well, carried themselves and spoke in their own unique way. Which I really appreciated that in the script. And I think Fransak is a great example of, like, he's there to solve this mystery, and he is adamant, like, this isn't the right thing. And the way he explains it throughout the film, and the way he keeps saying, like, this is, what's that line about beasts don't have teeth of iron or something like that?
Yeah. Beast doesn't have like a teeth of steel.
Yeah, that's
because he
so
finds
good.
The shard.
Yeah, it's such a good line for such a pivotal discovery. It's so good. So I thought the script was great. There are great lines throughout it. There's even great when Sylvie,
Mm-hmm.
when she shows up next to the sister and Marianne, and she says that Fransak has only ever loved one. And it's a subtle, beautiful line. Like, that goes more with the romance side of what's going on, but it's a subtle, beautiful line that's well written, well delivered. It's good stuff.
I can get down with that. Absolutely. I like the one part where they're at the brothel and they hear her scream and they go find out what's going on. And it turns out the one woman doesn't want to be with Manny because she's like, oh, he's a sorcerer, blah 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 blah. And, and the other girl's like, I'll take him. And she's like, are you really a sorcerer? And he just like pulls across the, he doesn't even say anything. It's not even a line. It's not even dialogue. But he's just like, she's like, oh, it was just crazy.
She says something about like, I like snakes or something. There's something about snakes said in that scene that is so good. And now that you say that, I thought they were talking about his tattoos. But
oh yeah, she said she saw a snake move. I think she was talking about his junk. Yeah,
yeah, that's it.
Oh man, yeah. There was some crazy stuff going on there, and then like the discussions between Gregoire and Sylvia when they're at the brothel, and like how she kind of like the way she talks with how she alludes to like the secrets and this and that, and how she be careful, the warnings and things like that. And then like when she comes to visit him when he's in the prison cell after he's been arrested, there's, I don't know, I thought the writing was really good in how each of the main characters, like even though Manny didn't have much as far as lines, but everyone else who was more of a historical character though had so much to say.
Right. Yeah. I gave it a 4 on the script. I thought the script was pretty great.
I went 5 because I thought it was super unique.
All right. So the acting.
Acting was, I think, pretty spot on for just about everybody for what kind of character they had.
Yeah.
And I don't really know much about Samuel Le Bihan, who played Sir Franzac. This is the only thing I've ever seen him in, but he's had a lot of work, all French TV and film. Mark Dacascos is widely known, and he's had so many awesome projects that he's been in. Like, and he's huge in the martial arts world as well. So you've seen him in tons of martial arts films. If you haven't, then you're missing out.
I think he's one of those castings that in 2024 would cause a riot because he's playing a Native American character, but he's Hawaiian of a Filipino, Chinese, whatever descent. But he'd worked with Gans before. The director. He's worked with the director before this movie. And he was also, he's brought in for those martial arts skills as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like, he was clearly there for the action more so than anything. That's why you didn't get much dialogue.
It's a great casting choice.
Absolutely. But then you got Vincent Cassel for Jean-Francois. That dude's he's got a huge portfolio of work as well.
I did not know he was a martial artist.
No?
Yeah,
oh, man.
I didn't know.
You missed out, dude. Did you ever see him in Ocean's 12 or Ocean's 13?
No.
Yeah, check those movies out, dude. He played in both of those, and that's where I know him mostly from. I've seen him through other small bits, but the majority of his work I haven't really seen. But what he has done that I have seen, he's always been really, really good at the character he portrays. And then Monica Bellucci for Sylvia, man, she's pretty awesome. I thought I saw her in John Wick 2, the Italian lady who is like the head of the table, but I was way off.
Okay.
Yeah, I was way off based on that. She was in the Matrix films.
Yes.
So that's where I recognized her, when I realized I recognized her from. But between them, just those people alone, awesome talent. Even some of the smaller characters like Thomas, Marquis, Marianne, and even what was it, the priest, whatever his name was, and like all the other aristocrats and stuff they were hanging out with. They all had good portrayals of the stuck-up, pompous jackasses that aristocrats were at that time. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So everyone I think did great. And even the commoners, sucks that they got beat on and, kind of crapped on all the time, but they acted like people who were oppressed and downtrodden, Yeah. So I think the overall tone and like, even with like the crazy hunters, they were kind of out there, but like they were kind of barbarous. They were hunters. They don't really fit into the aristocracy. They're that darker side of the territory, the culture there. And then just, there's just a lot of crazy stuff, man. But I think overall the acting was pretty rocking. So I gave it a 4.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that I recognized Monica Bellucci she was in Spectre, the James Bond film.
Well, oh, I didn't. I don't know if I saw.
Yep.
I don't think I
She
saw
was
her too.
Inspector.
No, I
So
didn't see that.
it was the less than thrilling follow up to Skyfall, which is nearly perfect James Bond film. But she was Inspector, and I don't know why. I mean, I mentioned to you Dacascos was in Warrior on HBO,
Yep.
which anybody out there listening, go check out Warrior. It's
Good
so
show.
good.
Such a good
Give it
show.
give it like most HBO shows, at least in my experience, give it a good 3 or 4 episodes for it to pick up. But once that show picks up, the climax to season 2 is insane. The climax to season 3 is emotional.
I still got
But
to watch season 3. I've seen
okay.
season 1 and 2, both fantastic.
Yeah.
So much good action, fantastic fight choreography. But don't let me get
Some of the
sidetracked
best.
there.
It's so good. But season 3 is pretty good as well. But I forgot that Mark Dacascos was in John Wick 3.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude. He was
I don't
so
know.
good, dude. These are great fight scenes with
Yeah.
him and Keanu Reeves. Oh yeah, dude.
I don't know how I forgot that he was in that film, but of course he's in that film. It's so good. The acting in this movie with a French cast that I have very little experience with outside of the 2 people that I've mentioned here, they're great. I would like to see more of their work, honestly, because they do a great job. Vincent Castle to me just looks like a villain. And so I want to see more of that villain work. So I guess he was in Black Swan, which I saw forever ago and don't remember.
I never saw it, so I can't really speak to that one.
Okay. And apparently he is in recent The Three Musketeers.
I saw that. Yeah, he was also
So,
in the Westworld series.
oh, I would be interested in
That was
checking
pretty
out that
cool.
Three Musketeers series. I didn't even know that was happening, but it's still
It looks
doing
like
a
he was
lot
in
of.
Jason Bourne.
Yeah, I don't remember that movie. I saw
I
it, but it was
don't think I saw
the
the first one or the second. Really, I
yeah, it
remember
was the
that.
least memorable of them. I did hear that a movie of his is really worth checking out that showcases his martial arts. It's kind of a French buddy cop story that is really good. I think it was the Crimson Rivers, but from
Crimson Rivers.
2000. It's kind of a French buddy cop where they're investigating a killer, but it really showcases some of his martial arts skills. But yeah, he was very good, and I would definitely want to check out some more of his work because I haven't seen the Oceans movies, so really this is the first time that he was in something where I was paying attention. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
All right.
I gave the acting a 4. They were a solid cast all the way through. So in agreement, 4 and 4.
Bet.
All right. The direction.
I don't know. I don't really have much to say on direction.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I'll counter my editing critique with the fact that I think the movie is beautifully directed. That's what frustrates me most about the editing is that there are so many great shots in this film that he does some great tracking shots. Some of them he overuses, like when it's not necessary. That like I don't need you to slow pan across a document on the desk as somebody writes. Not necessary, but it didn't distract. I think that's what frustrates me about all the slow fades and cross dissolves is let the art you set up in that camera show because it looks so good. And like I mentioned, that shot of Manny where the birds come out around him and fly in front of him, it looks so good. Or the shot I don't know if they did it practically or entirely CGI of the girl's eye with the beast reflected in it.
oh, I forgot about that. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's so good. The horror shots in this movie are fantastic, especially in that same sequence when she crashes into the water and you see the beast for the first time just as a blur over her shoulder. And it's so effective. It's so good. But there's also, like I mentioned, those beautiful shots where Fransak and Marianne are talking on the parapet. And it's a balanced shot. He mentioned something about like, why is that guy watching us? And he's here to protect me. But he's just taken up a third in the back, and it's a balanced using the rule of thirds. Like, it's good. There are so many great shots in the action shots in this of early on when Manny's in that full regalia, like up to his nose, and just that shot of him whipping that staff around to the side in the rain.
That was a good slowdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the ones I appreciated that, yeah.
Yep. There's a lot of good stuff in this film. I think it was lovingly crafted. I do. Well, I think he cared a lot about this film, and it shows.
Well, there's a lot of good use of the environments for a lot of the shots. Like during like the opening sequence or scenes of the movie, where you see the one girl running away, and you see it kind of tracking her through the woods until she gets to that giant stone where she's near the cliff edge, and she's like freaking out. What do I do?
Yeah.
Now, and that's where they start creating the fucking sense of mystery for the beast, and you never really see it until later on in the movie when he comes after that other girl.
And is that when her head starts smashing against the rocks? And
you see her trying to climb up the rock to get away, but then boom, down she goes. And they're just that right angle where you still see the ground behind it, but you don't see the beast. You don't see what's happening to her. And then all of a sudden, boom, back up again, smash. And she's just being beaten on the rock, bashed on the rock. Dude, just see her. The way they shot that was pretty cool. But even when like Manny and Gregoire and Thomas are hunting the beast, where they've got that little stone channel out there in the woods where it kind of goes down a little ravine where they set up all these traps and everything, all the different angles and shots, the way they ran those scenes between those little spaces and everything, the overhead shots from when they're dropping like the bamboo looking kind of cage on the beast to try and trap it, and then the angles where it's coming after Gregoire this one way or coming after Thomas this one way. And then like those upward angles where you see Manny dropping down from stuff, there's a lot of awesome camera work that I think went into all those shots. There was a really good filming of the action sequences and getting those angles.
Oh yeah.
Man. So rad.
And like I mentioned earlier, it's the way it's filmed, but also there was so much attention to detail from the costumes, the sets. It's period specific. It looks fantastic. All the costumes look so good. There's even some of the scenes that stand out to me. I don't understand. I still am not entirely sure why they were in the film, but they were so good. The scene where Fransak is asleep and Sylvia like turns into this witch.
The dream sequence. Yes.
Yeah, the dream sequence. I hate dream sequences.
I was going to bring that up.
But this one looks so cool. It's so good. Like she's totally naked, but there's tentacles or art or something like wrapped around her.
She's got the bedazzled muff.
It looks like a wit. Yes.
A bedazzled muff. I was like, what? Why is it all sparkly and jewelly?
It's witchy and there's like tree roots and she's got this knife ready to go at him. It's so cool. It looks so good. I'm not sure why it's needed. That's one of those whatevers, but I loved it. So, and there's another scene. I can't remember it. I can't remember what it was. I thought there was another scene that was similar later, but yeah, I gave the direction a 4. I thought it was really well done. I still think some of it could have been trimmed a little bit, but for the most part, great movie. As for all of the attention to historical detail, to the attention to fight scene choreography and cuts, angles, it was great. Yeah, I gave it a 4.
Dude, all the fight scenes were I thought were ridiculously well planned.
Yes.
Between Manny fighting the group of guys at the start that are beating the healer and his daughter, and then like the hunters, that the crazy girl tries to instigate the fights with and everything.
Yeah.
There's so much good action. And then seeing Gregoire at the end just going after those hunters at that
That's my
meeting
favorite
place with the
scene.
aristocrats and just
Yep.
taking them out one after the other, just
Yep.
whooping some ass.
That is
so
my favorite
hard.
scene.
The use of the environment from the upward angle shots, him doing the flip and doing like his superhero landing down the one knee on that stone table,
his sword
on that
spinning.
altar. Oh, dude, the spinning blades was such a super sweet touch. I was like, oh, that's looked like some cool shit Batman might do with like his batarangs and shit.
Yeah.
Of course, some big blades, like it's really, dude, it's so good. So good. I gave it a 4 on direction because
you mentioned one of the things I loved is when Franzak, after Mani dies, and Franzak goes on that rampage and starts taking those men out.
Oh, in the house? Yeah.
Yeah, in the house. That scene is so good. That's probably my favorite scene. That's the one time that the fight scenes didn't feel like a dance and they felt visceral. It felt like revenge, and there was a difference. I think that was totally on purpose.
Oh, yeah, and of course.
It was so good. It was so good. I like that scene a lot.
Hell yeah.
All right. So the overall it factor.
So, it factor, I couldn't really go much for. I just probably should have gone lower maybe, but I went with a 2 on this because it's mostly historical. It's set in a different time. It's not really culturally significant to the time it came out. Although Vel, very loved film when it came out, so I mean there was a big impact as far as box office numbers. But
yes.
I think there's probably a good, strong, kind of underground following for it. But it's not something that I've never heard anybody else really mention this film outside of the few other people that I know who've seen it. So yeah. I don't really have much to give it as far as any weight on that score. So I think 2 is pretty fair for me.
So
tell me I'm wrong. I don't know.
This was one that I did a little bit of research for going into it, and I normally don't do that. I normally don't like going off that, but this movie would have been like a 1 if I didn't, because I'd heard of it. It was in my peripheral. I think, when did it come out?
2001.
2001. I was 11.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the year. Yeah, like the end, like the last day of January.
Okay. So I was 11-ish when it came out. So I was young, but I remember the artwork. I remember the posters. I remember the costumes on the posters of the like covering the mouth up to the nose and the hat.
With the tri-point hats.
Yeah, I remember that. And I remember thinking the movie looked awesome. And I'd heard of it on and off throughout the years, just never really watched it. So I looked into it. I think apparently there was a huge marketing for it in France. Like apparently it was everywhere at the time it came out in France.
Oh, it was a top film that year in France.
Yeah. Well, and then Universal Pictures paid $2 million for the rights to distribute this movie in the US. And the movie went on to gross $11.2 million in a limited release in the US. It's the 6th highest grossing French language movie of all time in the United States.
Wow.
And it also did great sales on video and DVD. That's how
I saw it. A friend of mine bought the DVD and I was like, yeah, let's watch that.
So it's a pretty well loved film. And apparently it was a pretty big deal in 2011. I can't remember the fact I'll skip that one. But yeah, I ended up actually giving it a 4 because the cultural significance I thought was at the time it released, it was profitable, it was everywhere, and that to me is pretty significant. If TikTok, social media had been a thing back then, I think there are pieces of this movie that would have been making the rounds.
Probably. Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, so I think it would have been out there. So I gave it a 4. Overall, Jonathan, tell us how entertained you were.
Good Lord, I was entertained so much. Hot dog, I tell you. But no, seriously though, like I'm such a big action film fan, and for it being considered like a historical period piece horror film, I never thought I would have seen it at that because I focused always so much on the martial arts action, all the fight scenes.
Yeah.
Like when I saw it way back then, I didn't think about so much of the time period and what was going on at the time, all the historical stuff. Having watched it again recently and then taking that into account and how awesome that is that, they write this little bit of fiction into a major part of history for France. That with the way the storytelling was, the characters, how they interacted, and then just seeing Mark Dacascos being a badass, and then
Always a good time.
Gregoire Franzac just kicking ass left and right after the fact, because you never really see him do much anything really active through like the first half of the film.
Oh, I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have any action scenes until after Manny died,
Yes.
really. That's when he really got physical.
You think he's like this peaceful doctor and Manny's his protector, and then Manny dies and it unleashes the beast and Franza goes nuts is great.
Yeah. With that interaction and then just seeing like the bad guy, Jean-Francois, and then like how twisted he is, the secrecy, and seeing all these people who are, expressing, this desire to take down the king, everything. Just super awesome story. I'd give it a 10, man. I would watch it again and again and again. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend it to a lot of people to watch all the time.
All right. Okay, so this is the brutal part this is why I said you should go first. My overall enjoyment of it was a 5.
What?
And I know. It was inside in my head. This is one of the things I like about the scoring system I developed is that I can acknowledge the quality behind this movie, but God, I needed it to be half an hour shorter. Honestly.
Okay.
I watched it twice over the course of 3 days because none of my viewings were a single sitting. And that might be why it was a struggle. But like I sat down on Monday to watch this completely through, and about an hour into it, I needed a break. And the first hour is a struggle for me. I don't know why, because I like a lot of the scenes. There are just some scenes that I don't care for. And I think it's part of that melding of so many different genres is like, I don't really need much of the romance stuff. It's fine. It's good. Don't really need it. I'm here for that creature mystery and the martial arts stuff, that little horror. And I think this is a movie that if I watch it again, I'm going to appreciate it more. I appreciated it more the second time. I think the third time I would appreciate it more. But after watching it, I went back and I saw most of the people who love this film, and I don't know if this is you, saw it when they were younger than I am now. But also a lot of people talked about how amazing this film is in theaters. And so apparently it was re-released last year briefly on its anniversary in theaters. People talk about like, this is a movie, the way it's shot, everything is a movie made for theater viewing.
Oh, I wish I could have seen it in the theater. That would have been just super, super badass.
I can totally see that. I would watch this movie. I would watch this movie again. Sure. Absolutely. It's not one that I'm going to go to and grab. I think if I'm going, the problem I struggle with is if I'm going for a action movie, I'm going to pick one that's a little faster paced than this. This one's pretty slow for the first hour and a half. And then there's good choreography and good fight scenes in it. If I'm going to pick a horror movie, I'm going to pick one that leans more into the horror. This is a very niche film because it is so well balanced at what it does. And this is like, as I'm scoring this movie, I'm like, yeah, this is quality here, acting, script, story, all of it is really well done. But at the end of it, I couldn't help but sit here and go, I need it half an hour shorter. I just need, and I think most of that is a 2-minute scene here trimmed, 2-minute scene here trimmed. And I think then my short attention span would be all in. And I struggle saying that because I can acknowledge the through and through quality of the filmmaking. There's just something about it that I couldn't get through either of my watches in a single sitting.
Okay, well, there turns out there are 3 different versions. There's the original French US theatrical cut that was supposed to be about 142 minutes.
Okay.
Then there was a special UK cut that was 139, and the one I saw was the director's cut, which is like 152.
Okay, so I watched both director's cuts. The first time I watched it French with subtitles, and
I've always watched it dubbed.
I watched
it French.
Second time I watched it dubbed. So I think there were things I liked. I liked the understanding the second time dubbed. The performances were much better with subtitles. But that makes sense that I watched the director's cut. That's 150 minutes, you said?
Yeah, so what I watched, it including like all the credit scenes and stuff, was like 158. So the actual runtime was like about the 150, 152.
Yeah, so I would have watched the director's cut. That makes me want to go back and watch the 130 cut and see if my thoughts change. I think this is a movie that maybe if I had seen the 130-minute cut and I loved it, and then went to the extended director's cut, I would have loved it more. I don't know.
Well, with the UK cut, apparently, like the Royal Hunter they sent out that Gregoire Franzoc made the fake beast for, they cut him out. That's how they cut that one down. They took that dude out entirely out of that one. So that dude doesn't even come to play as any part of the story in that version. So what we saw, we had that guy and his jackassery, and
Yep.
It's like here's all these wolf pelts. You know what to do. Make me a beast. You know.
Yeah, and that was a scene I didn't really care for. So that, I don't know if I appreciate the idea behind it. I didn't need it to be that long. Yeah. So my overall score is still pretty high. The overall score is 36. So 3.5 stars for me.
Okay. And well, I came in at a pretty rocking 42.
Yep.
So I'm up there on it.
So you're 4 stars out of 5. I'm 3.5 out of 5. So if I get my trusty calculator here, you have 42 plus 35 equals a 38.5. So that would round up to a 4-star movie. And I'm pretty comfortable. I'm comfortable with that 4-star movie. It's definitely, I would recommend it, but I would have to know. I'm not going to recommend it to everybody. I'm going to be like, what are you looking for? And specifically, I think the person needs to like period dramas.
They need to like a lot of story. A lot of story.
It's a lot of story. If it's somebody wanting an action movie, probably not going to recommend it. Not going to recommend it for a horror movie. But if you like period dramas and you like this other stuff, this movie's great. So it's worth a watch. Yeah. I'm glad you brought this to my attention. I'm glad I watched it. I almost feel bad when it comes to it. And I'm like, my enjoyment was pretty low. But hey, I liked Black Roses more than you. So.
That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. I said it all averages out, right?
Exactly. That's what we're doing. We're averaging it out, giving a fair representation for the average person. So if we're way off, if I'm way off, more likely, fill out that review card in our bio on Instagram. So that link will take you to, you can check out sponsor, you can check out our sponsor. You can check out all the links to listen to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. You can fill out, there's a review a movie link, which is the exact same thing I use every time I'm done with a movie. I click that link, I go through, I score it. You put in your email. I don't keep track of that, but it sends the score back to you so that you have it. And if you give us a valid Instagram tag, I'll include your thoughts in there, share it on Instagram, and it gets added into the average. We don't get a lot of those. So if you're out there, fill it in and you get added into our average at the end. So I know we have 13 Nights of Halloween coming up. Hard at work getting that ready. We'll release the list of movies for that in advance so that you can prep. But more importantly, we want you to watch them those 13 nights. So the episode might already be recorded by the time you get your score in, but that's fine because we'll tally it up through the end. We tally it up with every movie though. So if you love this movie, go fill out a scorecard and get it in there. And then I'll make a new post that includes your score to it. So
be part of the critique. Make yourself heard. Jump in on this. Let us know what you think.
Yep. So that's one of the things that I wanted. The average exists to bring people together to celebrate the different ways that we watch movies. So I want it to be a discussion. No attacking people in the comments for thinking they're stupid or whatever. But
Lame.
everybody watches things differently. Everybody appreciates different things in movies. That's one of the great things about entertainment in general is everybody can appreciate it in a different way. And that's what we're here to celebrate. So like Jonathan said, be a part of that conversation. So Jonathan, any more thoughts about this movie? Any final statements?
Aside from checking out the film itself, the main actors, check out their other work as well. They've got some great stuff. Definitely worth checking out. Like I said, we already mentioned, Oceans 12, 13, if you haven't seen those, but you've seen 11, see the rest, if you haven't seen the Matrix films, go check them out. You'll see some of these other characters that we're talking about. Other than that, send us some suggestions. Maybe if you got a film you think we should check out, send us a recommendation. Maybe we'll do a review.
Absolutely. Sounds good to me. All right. I think that is all we have for this episode. Yeah. So go check out Brotherhood of the Wolf. It was streaming free on Tubi. I also found it on AMC Plus, which I accidentally have a subscription to. So I think it came with my Shudder subscription. I'm not sure. So go watch it. Let us know what you think of that film. And we will see you in 2 weeks for the next episode.